I'd like to call to order the March 2 meeting of the Common Council. The time is 7 p.m. We'll begin with the roll call. Joanne?
Mayor Kim Smith,
Here.
Tom Smith,
Here.
Dan Stevens,
Here.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Jim Olson,
Here.
Carrie Burmaster,
Here.
Diane Wolf.
Here.
Thank you. We are all present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to America and to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you. Item 3, the rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees. This is a harassment-free forum. The City Council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the Sergeant at Arms or the chair at any time during the remarks. And in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Item 4 is public input. Anyone who would like to address the Common Council this evening, now is the time to do so. Please come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Christopher Flash. My address is 610 Harvey Street in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Talking about the home occupation ordinance. Just want to thank you for giving me this time to speak on that. I'm the husband of Jody Flash, who owns and operates Microblading by Jody Flash in downtown La Crosse. For those that don't already know, microblading is a form of permanent makeup that is used to create and enhance the appearance of eyebrows. In order to perform this type of service, a variety of sterile tools and needles are used to strategically implant colored pigment into the skin. Because of that, this type of service requires a tattoo license and must be performed in a licensed tattoo facility. We recently bought some land in Onalaska and are eager to build. One key element of our house was going to be a home studio for Jody. However, this restriction would cause us to delay construction and downsize our design. States across the nation allow tattoo artists to work out of licensed home locations, and there are specific legal guidelines outlining the necessary features that the workspace should have in order to operate. Jody has established great rapport with the La Crosse County Health Department, and I can assure you that these features would be implemented if allowed to have a home studio. Small businesses have already suffered greatly during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and Jody's business is no exception. Additionally, when looking at COVID case rates and American Community Survey data at the county level, there's a relatively strong negative correlation between working at home and confirmed COVID cases. In other words, working at home helps reduce the spread of infectious diseases such as COVID. We're asking you to allow businesses that fall under the tattooing licensure to be able to operate from home, as there is no data that I'm aware of to support that home studios pose a statistically significantly greater risk than those working out of a commercial location. Banning this type of business from the ability to have a home studio would create an unnecessary hardship, as operating out of remote locations adds financial, time, and other burdens. This is a highly regulated industry with strict annual inspections and requirements in place for home locations. Lastly, Jody's home studio would cause no disruption in the community. There's no odor from her work. There's no nuisance in the form of loud noises, and she is self-employed with no employees and can only work on one client at a time. Therefore, traffic would be minimal, as there would generally be only one additional vehicle in the neighborhood at a time. So please do not add tattoo parlors to this prohibited list. Please support small businesses like Jody's, and please allow licensed tattoo artists to have the opportunity to operate out of their homes here in Onalaska. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who would like to address the Common Council this evening? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jan Brock. I live at 3364 Emerald Valley Drive. I represent Centering Onalaska, of which I have brought 14 other members with me tonight. Okay. We're here in support of the Park and Rec memo from Dan Wick, item number 12 on your agenda that you will consider later this evening. We would encourage the city to approve this memo, which involves the 2022 hanging flower basket responsibilities. Not having the city water the baskets during the week has certainly been a setback, but we feel that the flower baskets are such an important signature of our community that we are trying to put them up this summer and hopefully indefinitely, at least long beyond our tenure. Flower baskets have graced Main Street since 2003, and they have become a fixture in the landscape for our residents, our visitors, and our businesses. People know Onalaska, just like Red Wing, for our flowers, and that's a very, very good thing. We have grown from the original 12 baskets in 2003 to 56 baskets now on Main Street, in the Great River Landing, and on the south side of Dash Park. Our volunteer group really has not grown. We've been about 12 to 14 members all along, but we still manage to help with the hanging baskets, the Christmas decorations, and the harvest decorations. Our dedication to this beautification project for the city is most evident by those of us in attendance this evening. We all feel the right thing to do is to hang the baskets again this summer and have them continue to bloom for our community. Whether we are able to do that is still an unanswered question. We have to work through several issues, one of the most important being watering, another being insurance. And we have greatly, greatly appreciated the help of Dan Wick, Lane Sartre, Dan Stevens, and Amanda Jackson. They met with us on February 28th to explain several things that we didn't understand and give us guidance on how to proceed. We have taken that guidance and are working to find solutions, especially to watering the baskets almost every day. But without the city assistance, as outlined in the Park and Rec memo, we really can't proceed. These baskets benefit everyone in our community. Hopefully, we can work together in a mutually acceptable manner to make sure that the baskets happen again this summer and for many summers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brock. Would anyone else like to address the Common Council this evening?
I'm Ward Kyle, 426 North Avenue North, here in Onalaska, needless to say. I'm here tonight to thank our police department for the job which they do. The dedication, the professionalism, and courtesy that they portray as officers is awesome. The community can and should be proud and thankful. In these hostile times, anytime they put on a uniform, they're taking a risk. I don't care if it's here, Chicago, or wherever. And the reason I mentioned Chicago, because back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, I was with the State Lodge Fraternal Order of Police in Illinois for 20 years. While I was not an officer, I did many different duties for them, from Rockford to Joliet to Calumet City to Waukegan, and in the city of Chicago itself. Our officers are at risk just as much as they are. They have more people, they have more officers. That's the only difference. The risk is still the same. We should appreciate them and thank them. As many know, I deliver between 350 and 400 tributes a night here in the Onalaska area. And I do run in, when I say run in, notice I'll call them the night officers, the night shift, even though I realize shifts are different. Many, many times throughout the community, throughout the evening. I can assure you, this community is, as the old Chicago, serve and protect. And the Onalaska officers also do the same thing, because damn it, I see them all over, trust me. And they are definitely serving and protecting us. Also, Chief, we also owe you thank you for this department, because you are definitely in the rarefied air as chief of the city of Onalaska, because your officers all speak praise when they talk about you and how you do your job. The city should commend you and thank you for that and your efforts. I want to congratulate the honorees tonight and thank you for your service and wish you all a great future. I've already talked to the fire chief tonight. They do a hell of a job too. And I only hope that I don't see them in the middle of the night because generally that is trouble. The chief says they can wait till 7 o'clock to call us, but you know how it is. The fire department is also excellent. Again, I would like to remind this city council and the city of Onalaska to thank their police and fire department. You do have two great departments and I congratulate you also. And again, thank you, officers.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to address the Common Council this evening? Second call for anyone else who would like to address the Common Council. Third and final call for those wishing to address the Common Council during public input this evening. Not seeing or hearing any, I'll move on to item 5, the report from the mayor. Item A is recognizing Assistant Police Chief Troy Miller's retirement with a proclamation. Troy, if you want to come up toward the podium, I'm going to read your proclamation and then I'll come and give it to you right after I get done reading it. So this is a proclamation of thanks to Troy Miller for his service to the city of Onalaska. Whereas Troy Miller has served the city of Onalaska Police Department for over 25 years, during which time the city has grown from a population of about 15,000 to 19,000 people. And whereas Troy Miller has served our community where he was called in the roles of patrol officer, sergeant, assistant chief, and police chief. And whereas Troy Miller has consistently been a leader for the police department and was instrumental in re-energizing the police reserve unit. And whereas Troy Miller has made an impact regionally as co-chair of the Cooley Region Children's Internet Protection Task Force from 2007 to 2021, and also serving as forensic analyst and treasurer. And whereas Troy Miller was a great gang resistance education and training instructor from 2003 to 2009. And whereas Troy Miller has been recognized with several awards, including the Life Saving Award and the Purple Heart. And whereas Troy Miller has a lifelong commitment to learning and has pursued additional training and certification throughout his career. And whereas Troy Miller has ensured that the city policy and practice was executed consistently and legally throughout his tenure. Whereas Troy Miller's presence at City Hall will be missed by many, not only those within the hall, but by the entire community. And now therefore, I, Kim Smith, Mayor of the City of Onalaska, on behalf of the citizens, do recognize and officially thank Troy Miller for his dedication and years of service to the City of Onalaska. Troy, you can just stay right there. Chief, I'll turn it over to Chief Ashbeck for the next section.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, everyone. I'm not much of a speech person, so I did write down just a few words so I would remember them. But it has been my honor to serve with and work closely with Assistant Chief Miller, or as some call T-Roy, for the past 2.5 years. I have known Troy professionally for upwards of 15 years. So it is with mixed feelings to be up here tonight, honoring him and yet saying goodbye to one of our finest. The last 2 years have been difficult for our profession and for us, but I'm thankful to have had Troy by my side. He has been a steadfast pillar of our department for the last 25 plus years. Staff and I could count on his leadership, high ethics, and moral compass to always guide the department in the right direction. He has been a cornerstone for our department for a long time, and I know staff are going to miss him. And I guess I'll miss him too. Hard to replace 25 years of historical knowledge, insight, wisdom, technical skills, and friendship. And then, of course, there's this humor. Not sure that can be replaced, nor should it be replaced. I joke, but I joke about it, but in today's world, we have to keep a good sense of humor. And as ways to relieve that constant pressure and stress that we are under. So oftentimes his humor was much needed. I'm fortunate though that tonight we will be swearing in our next assistant chief. And if anyone has a chance to fill Troy's shoes, it would be Sergeant Berg. So, or in a few moments, Assistant Chief Berg. So as much as we dread losing Troy, I feel confident our department is in good hands moving forward. With that, I would like to present this plaque to Troy as a way to show our appreciation for his service and dedication to our community. And it reads, Onalaska Police Department Assistant Chief Troy Miller, for over 25 years of leadership, courage, wisdom, service, and dedication to the Onalaska community, police department, and staff. Congratulations on your retirement, September 24th, 1996 to April 1st, 2022. Congratulations. We wish you a wonderful retirement, and please remember you got to come into work tomorrow. Did you want to say?
I don't know where to begin. Someone told me to say a few words. He should know better by now. Once you get me going, I really don't stop. So, no, but I will make it short and sweet tonight. I am very honored. Had I known this many people like me, maybe I'd have stuck around a little longer. But no, I'm very excited to start the new chapter in my life. It has been an honor to serve this community. And quite frankly, I couldn't have done it with all these people behind me. The Onalaska Police Department has been a second family to me for the last 25 and a half years. Although sometimes dysfunctional, we're still a family. And we know we always can count on each other. I think the biggest achievement or most important achievement in my entire career though was meeting my wife. Had it not been for this job, I probably would not have done so. So I'm going to recognize her and my one son, Matthew, in the back of the room back there. Unfortunately, my other son, Bradley, is a student at Arizona State University, and he could not be here tonight. But Brad, if you're listening to us on Zoom, thank you for everything. They really have been my rock. As you know, I've held different positions in this department through good times and bad times, and being able to go home to them has basically made me so I could last as long as I did. So had it not been for their support, I don't think I'd be in the position to retire today. Like I said, start a new chapter in my life. I'm looking forward to it, but my heartfelt thanks go out to them. And again, I would not have had such a great career had it not been for my Onalaska family. My coworkers, Tim, who is going to be recognized here shortly. I think we were friends since day one when he started. So it's been a great career. So thank you all for your support over the years and standing by me through the good and bad times. And hopefully we won't be strangers and our paths will cross again. So thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll turn it back over to Chief Ashbeck for the next section of this evening.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Now I have the distinct honor of asking Sergeant Berg to come forward to get sworn in as our next Assistant Chief. And I'm very excited to have him on board. I know Assistant Chief Berg has worked tirelessly over his career. Just a fantastic employee, a fantastic leader. He's worked extremely hard to put himself in the position he's in today. And I know that we're going to do great things together. I look forward to our journey together. So I wish you the very best. And
Thank you.
anyway, we'll invite your wife up to do the badge pinning right after.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Timothy Berg,
I, Timothy Berg,
having been appointed to the office
have been appointed to the office
of Assistant Chief of Police,
of Assistant Chief of Police
of the City of Onalaska,
for the City of Onalaska,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. I just would like to thank everybody, all of my coworkers, Troy and the chief and my family, and everybody else in the room who's helped me along the way to get where I'm at today. And I hope I can do as good of a job as Assistant Chief Miller did. So, thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Chief, why don't you just continue?
Yeah, sorry, I'm taking up all the time tonight, but we have some great honorees tonight and not last but not least, we'd like to recognize Officer Josh Goldbeck. He has reached his probationary period. He's successfully completed it. So we have his appointment certificate here that reads, this is to certify that Joshua Goldbeck, having satisfactorily completed his probationary period, is hereby selected and appointed to the rank of police officer with the Onalaska Police Department effective this 23rd day of February 2022. So Officer Goldbeck, if you come on up. Like this. All right. Thanks.
Congratulations, Officer Goldbeck. Okay, and the fun has not ended yet for this evening. We have the recognition of an event held this past week. Special Olympics was celebrating in many ways. The week started out with our own police officers and others gathering for the Cops Gone Wild event. So if I could have Scott come on up, Alder Stevens, Blair, and Officer Blair, and Chief Ashbeck, I think you should come up too. You participated. These were the winners from the Cops Gone Wild wing eating contest at Buffalo Wild Wings. We were super excited to have so many Onalaska winners. Scott is a Special Olympian, won his division. Officer Tyler Blair won the officers division. Alder Stevens won the elected officials division, and Chief Ashbeck also competed.
Where's your trophy?
He didn't win.
Did you get a trophy? No trophy?
So
Next
let's
year,
have a
Chief.
round of applause and the thank you so much. And then the week wrapped up on Saturday with the Polar Plunge. I was fortunate to be able to lead off the plungers, and we had a strong showing of Onalaska City employees and supporters at the event. Was a great time, was had by all, the weather cooperated, and we also received over $1,000 in generous donations. So thank you all for supporting that event. It was really a good week for the Special Olympics. So thank you again, everyone. Now we'll move on to the boring stuff. Recommendation for approval and possible action on the following committees, commissions, boards, and officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business in which it was in the order of business in the non-consent agenda. So are there any items counselors would like removed from the consent agenda? Amanda?
Carrie has her hand raised.
Okay.
Virtually.
Carrie?
I would like to request that we remove judiciary item number M, ordinance number 1725-2022.
Thank you. Carrie, do you have any other items you would like removed?
That's the only item I have.
Thank you. Are there any other counselors that would like to see an item removed from the agenda?
Your Honor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Dan Stevens, seconded by Alder Tom Smith to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. We'll continue on to the non-consent agenda. I have been asked to consider item 10 first. This was the Board of Public Works item. So I will turn that over to Alder Knott.
Okay, this sidewalk removal charges for 13.
I'm gonna close the doors.
Okay.
Wild night tonight.
Sidewalk snow removal charge for 1347 Fourth Avenue North deals with a charge for snow removal after several days after notification to where the sidewalk had not been cleared. I'll turn it over, I guess, to Jared if you have anything else you would like to include.
Thank you, Alder Knott. We gave a report at the Board of Public Works on the notice that was given, the days that were left till the event, and then when the snow was removed. Also in the Board of Public Works packet were pictures that were taken before the snow was removed and then after. Available for any questions if you have any.
Sir?
I'll move to approve the sidewalk snow removal charges for 1347 Fourth Avenue North.
Thank you. For clarification, your motion was to,
Approved.
as they.
Go forward
stand.
with, yeah, go forward
Okay,
with. the
I
charge.
just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Is there a second?
I will second that for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Wolf. Is there discussion?
For the record, that was Alder Knott.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It was Stephen Knott who made the motion and Diane Wolf who seconded it. Sorry about that. Thank you for fixing it. Alder Smith.
Is Chad here? Yeah, Chad is in District 1 and he wanted to speak on this. If we would allow him, we asked him to wait for this. So it was a request that it get moved up for him to be able to speak with some feedback.
Sure. Please come forward. Begin by stating your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
We've raised both of our children in Onalaska and have been proud to call Onalaska home for these many years. I have also been a park and rec coach for the city on a number of different teams. And I estimate I've probably volunteered several hundred hours on behalf of the city. My point in giving you this background is that I'd like you to consider the message that you're sending to my family and to any other Onalaska residents who would find themselves in this situation. I'm a man of principle and I strive to fulfill all of my obligations, which is why I was absolutely stunned and extremely upset when I initially received a fine for $518 for snow removal. Multiple rounds of communication with Mr. Holter, I've understood the details of this ordinance and how is it enforced today. I'd like to bring 3 items to your attention that I believe result in unintended consequences and a resulting extreme message that is conveyed the city did not likely anticipate. First, in the spirit of good faith, why would the city employees doing the initial sidewalk inspection not ring the doorbell while hanging the door hanger? It's not only a simple gesture of goodwill, but in our case would have prevented all of this from happening, as both my wife and daughter were home that morning of January 25th. Second, the way the fee is currently computed is based on the length of sidewalk, which implies that the $2 per foot fee is intended to correlate with the amount of work needed to clear the sidewalk. As Mr. Holter explained to me, the computation was designed to be punitive, not commensurate with labor time. So if I lived in the house next door or any of the others on my block, which have 80 feet of sidewalk versus my 234 feet, my fee would be $210 versus $518. I'd suggest the city consider applying a flat fee to all single-family R1 zone properties instead of the present method, which contradicts the punitive intent. I think any reasonable person would conclude that a fee of $200 per event is going to be absolutely effective at deterring any residents from not clearing their sidewalks, regardless of their sidewalk length. Third, since the intent is punitive, has the city considered having a first-time offender fee that is more moderate, or empower the Public Works Director with the latitude to take the context of the situation into account? It was explained to me that there's currently no consideration given to the facts regarding a specific situation or the family that lives there, but rather this is a one-size-fits-all approach with no latitude given to apply judgment. The current structure of these 3 items do not pass the common sense test, in my opinion. I believe the residents of Onalaska would agree with me on this. I respectfully request you take these 3 things into consideration, not only for my situation, but for future residents being impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Okay, we'll bring it back to the commissioners. Is there any further discussion? Alder Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill, you can sit down. Thank you.
While I'm certain a $500 bill for snow removal is would be alarming, I'd be shocked if I had something like that opened up, and that would be problematic. However, we did have our public works people. I mean, they actually had to go do work, and there's a reason that we have the sidewalk ordinance that it has to be cleared. It is a public issue. That said, this is an opportunity for us to review what we would maybe call the best practices. I had the department send over a notice of what the flyer was that gets put on people's doors. And one thing I thought that perhaps we should do different in the future is put what the fine is. So if people were to receive the notice, they can do the math themselves. If it's $2 a square foot and I've got, 100 foot of sidewalk, it's whatever the flat fee is plus another $200. That hopefully would be motivation enough. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with having public works employees reach out and ring doorbells. I don't think that's really done anywhere in the United States from public works departments to citizens for clearing the sidewalk. And I'm not sure that we would start that there. Whether the fee is appropriate or not, I guess is it's up to council. But I really think we should consider adjusting the notice to let people know what the potential consequences are. With that said, I would hope that if somebody received the notice that they would, clear the sidewalk. We don't have the staff necessary to wholesale start cleaning people's sidewalks. And I believe that's the reason for the ordinance. We do not want to be in the snow clearing business. We have other groups, like, for example, Centering Onalaska is here tonight, that have had some cuts that have been very inappropriate or very counterproductive to their mission. And the answer is we don't have the staff or the man hours to do that. So I understand the city's policy of this being punitive. Whether that's too much, I don't know. That's up for debate. But I do think that we could remove the element of surprise. And I think in full disclosure and transparency, if people get this notice on their door, they should be able to do the math and see what the potential fine is. Now, if they thought it was, I don't want to mow, or I don't want to shovel today, and they can just do it and give me a $50 bill or 200 or whatever the case, it's kind of a moral hazard. And I think that appropriately posting what the fee would be a good start to rectifying that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, Chad lives in District 1, and so I've talked to Chad several times. Jim and I have been involved in the discussions with him, and I respect that Chad is willing to pay the fine. He's not even questioning that. He takes that responsibility. But I do think, and I think we do need to make it punitive. It definitely has to be something that we're not going to become a shovel sidewalk person for any resident. So it has to be something that hurts a little bit. But I think the surprise that Alderman Stevens said, but also the price is, this isn't the first time we've had people come here now. We had an $800 one once that I've been on the council, and we've had a $500. I mean, it just seems like there's got to be some compromise somewhere in between. Or I like the idea of looking at situations that may have some exceptions to it instead of just saying it's all or nothing. I don't know the answer, and I support the punitive charges. I support that we continue the policy, but I think, as Chad said, I think the feedback that we're sending to the citizens of Onalaska, because I've heard it from other neighbors of Chad saying, boy, you guys are really, really tough, and we shove our side, but we just think that's extreme. And, and we're also paying taxes. And so we're getting some negative feedback from that, not just from Chad, but other people in that area. So I think I don't know the answer, and I don't want to say we don't want to do it, because we have to. And Jerry's put in a tough position. He's just implementing the policy that we presented. And so I just think that we need to review it again and see if there's some way we can make some compromises or exceptions at times that maybe require several approvals. I don't want to create a bureaucracy, but I just think sometimes that this punitive thing has gone a little too extreme in some of these situations, to be charged $500 or $800 to shovel a sidewalk. And I get it, we don't have enough staff. We don't want to be in that business, but there's got to be a compromise or some compromise in between. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Alder Stevens, or I guess I'm off on names tonight. Alder Smith, Alder Not.
Yeah, no, I'm really intrigued with Alder Stevens's proposal to put the cost on to the notification. I think that is something that would be relatively easy to do. I'm also intrigued by Mr. Hill's recommendation that maybe we have in the future a first-time offender option as well. It would still have to be punitive, but to maybe not quite as extreme. Along with then it's going to go up. So, but obviously we've had a lot of discussion on this over the years. As every time one of these fines comes out, it appears before us pretty much. And I know that we had discussed in the past on one exception that, personally I would support. We have not had that yet. It was a potential, but then the evidence was never brought forward on a medical emergency, where obviously if somebody has an extreme medical event, they're not going to be at their house to be able to do this through no fault of their own. They didn't have time to arrange for somebody else in advance to do it. So there probably are some, but they would be very limited in scope, I would think, for any type of exception to this. So.
Thank you. Alder Olson?
Just to dovetail on your comments, Steve, that I think the general consensus for this gentleman's property was a little unfair, because because he's on an end corner, he's got twice as much sidewalk as somebody else. So obviously he's going to pay more. And we might want to consider, something a little fair to him, since that's quite a bit of money. But so that's my only comment.
Eric, did you want to say something? Eric Reinflush, our city administrator.
Thank you. Part of my roles is to often offer suggestions for policy recommendations to the council. In such case, at this point, I'd recommend not making any changes at this moment in time for the sidewalk for the various reasons. We've heard about first-time offender recommendation. I'd like to point out, I think we're already more generous than other communities in our immediate area. If we're in La Crosse, for example, when they see snow past 24 hours, it's shoveled. There is no notice. So, right now the procedure is we send crews out to see which sidewalks haven't been shoveled after 24 hours, correct? Then we go back, verify that they have been shoveled, and then door tag them. Then we go back and actually shovel. So we're already offering 3 different opportunities that we're sending crews out to see that same patch of sidewalk that's been unshoveled. Exceptions can be made, and the body that makes those exceptions is I'm standing in front of right now. And so when concerns about medical issues do come up, you do have that authority to change your own rules and regulations. And be careful about putting it into an ordinance, because now you're stuck each and every time someone now has a guidance to look at that. The other thing about first-time offenders, it becomes very difficult administratively, particularly if you think about rental properties. Is it the owner of the rental property? Is it the tenant of the rental property? Is it the individual in the house? Or who's keeping track of when that house is bought and sold? And there's new residents inside that house. I think a first-time offender becomes just untenable to really kind of manage. But I do think that this body has an ability to listen to stories and make exceptions to your own rules as it currently stands. So again, I would recommend not making any changes to the policy right now. But it's just based on sort of how we operate currently and what seems to make sense to us. Jared, I know you have more of a history than I do here about why we have the current procedure. But I do think it comes, as we've heard the term punitive, it has come because I think in the past it was cheaper just to let the city do it than manage it yourself. And that becomes problematic. There's also the downside of perhaps capping off the costs. If someone maybe that we're not thinking about has an incredibly long sidewalk, it may become cheaper to just have whatever that cap is than it would be to have, some kind of percentage or some kind of credit for a corner lot. So for ease of managing the procedure, the current procedure is best, or I'd recommend going to the direction of La Crosse, which would be when you see it, you shovel it and you bill, because that actually would save us and be far more efficient for public works.
Thank you for that. Jared, did you want to add anything before we go back to the alders?
Just over the course of the years that I've been here, over 20 years, the sidewalk snow removal gets to be a contentious topic with the public. We get calls at the office. We used to, until approximately 3 years ago, we used to do the removal of snow more on a complaint basis. We'd get calls, we'd get calls from citizens, something, and we would go out, we'd actually mail letters out. And we found with the mail service, by the time we gave the 5 days for the mail and the 24 hours after that, it was ended up being so long that it would snow again in between. And we start to clock all over again. So that's how we ended up kind of where we're at today. I do agree with the first time offender would be hard to keep track of. It would be a policy decision on capping it at a certain amount for single family or R2 zoning, or having some sort of a corner credit, or, I look at the one that came in last year, very similar to Mr. Hill, that came in, had a long sidewalk, had 250 foot of frontage, triangular lot in that one, and wasn't a corner, but it had triangular lot. And they had shoveled on Sunday. We went out on Monday and it had drifted in. The individual left for work and didn't come home till Wednesday. We already had the sidewalk shoveled by then. He had a $500 and almost $600 bill. So, I do see where they're coming from, but we're enforcing the current policy as it's brought forward. So
Thank you.
I'd be available for more questions if you have any.
Thank you. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Jared,
I'm guessing there are about, what, 6,000 plus parcels in the city of Onalaska?
Give or take, yeah, a little over
Um,
6,000.
You know, and I think, we have a small staff. We've always operated with a small staff. How do we make it work for the general public? And that's always that's always the hard part, is when we do have a smaller staff. And we're trying to set ordinances that are going to best serve all, but also at the end of the day, I always hear this from the planning department, we want compliance. That's what we're looking for, is compliance. And I know, been here long enough where we've talked about that there are certain things in our ordinances, code of ordinances, where we have to be penal in order to get the job done, or else, we do not want to become a personal snow shoveling service to the community. My one concern, though, about the possible discussion of the first time offender, if we're going to do snow, I think we've got to do grass also. I mean, possibly. Or maybe people may think maybe it's more snow would be more important, just because, well, not necessarily. In a sense, I think snow is more important to remove just for the safety, whereas grass, that doesn't hurt anything technically. So, and I've gotten calls from people and from the disabled community who, they're pretty upset about if things are not cleared off in this community, as they should, with crosswalks and various intersections and the cutouts for their wheelchairs or whichever mobile chairs they're using and such. So, this is tough. I could see a possibility of maybe capping something, but at the end of the day, I would not want to lose that ability that has code enforcement that has some bite to it, so we don't start having more and more of these. And I think with a community of our size, for example, Jared, off the top of your head, do you have an idea that maybe a typical snowfall, do you send out 10 or 30 where your public works people are hanging the doors on average, like maybe the storm that this gentleman is referring to? What would be a typical number? And I know they're all different, but.
So on average, so of the 6,000 parcels, is probably just say 3,000 that have sidewalk frontage, because not every parcel has sidewalk frontage within our community. We will tag approximately 30, and we will end up removing snow from 5 to 8. Sometimes it's a little few less, sometimes it's a few more, depends on the snowfall.
And honestly, I mean, I think we've heard more people coming in, maybe this year, maybe last year. We've had just a couple, but when you think about that many, it is a very small number that are coming forth and asking for a special consideration, which I do think is the right thing to do. I for one, I think I would continue to support the way our ordinance is currently written. But still, I think there's a lot to be said for citizens still be able to come and come to Board of Public Works, come to council and appeal it. Because I think at the end of the day, people should be able to have that right to come as a last resort, to come to council and to overwrite something. So, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Alder Stevens.
All right, to keep this moving along here, I think I'm gonna offer an amendment. And I'm going to say that City of Onalaska should reduce the charges for 1347 4th Avenue North to $350, and also to direct the city to update the notices to reflect pricing charges.
I'll second that.
We have an amendment by Alder Stevens. It's been seconded by Alder Smith. The amendment is to reduce the charges of the address in question to $350 and to update the notices to include the calculation for the fine. Discussion. Okay, let's go to our city attorney first in case it's relevant.
I would just, caution that if you're going to start making reductions, that you have to be consistent with those moving forward. And so if there's a rationale for why you're giving the reduction, I think it would be best if you stated that. But but that it opens the door, that we need to treat all residents fairly and consistently. And so if we're reducing one, then we really should look at, whether it's appropriate to reduce all of them. And then the second thing I would add is that, we recently denied a claim for someone who had slipped and fallen on a sidewalk, that had made a claim against the city. And the reason that we denied that is because the city is not liable for slips and falls on sidewalk. However, the property owner could be, and the cost of having a slip and fall on your sidewalk is likely significantly higher than what the city is charging as a penalty.
Thank you for that. Alder Knott.
Yeah, so a couple brief things here. First off, I certainly would oppose any kind of a cap, because I'd personally perceive this as a violation of fairness. Smaller, which should normally go along with less expensive properties and property owners, would end up paying more per square foot of removal than larger, which normally goes along with more expensive properties, would be paying per square foot. And I just think that violates a certain amount of fairness. So what we're doing though right now is we have an ordinance and it's been passed. So anything we vote on right now to change is going to be an exception. It's not a change to the ordinance. And for me, any exceptions that before I could even consider them, they need to be limited in scope and defined. And this current proposal as brought forward seems kind of vague and random. So yeah, I can't support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? I'll go to Alder Wolf and then we'll go to Alder Stevens next.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with Alder Knott. Can't disagree with anything you just said. I am very sympathetic to the homeowner. I'm very sympathetic to situations that people have been in. I know that this body at Board of Public Works and Council have continued, as our city attorney has recommended, that we stay the course. As someone, when I initially came on council in 2003, I remember there are a few people here who were working here who are no longer here, but I looked to them as my mentors about how to do city business. And it really struck a chord with me that treat everyone the same. You treat everyone the same and you don't show favoritism, you're going to stay out of a lot of trouble. Granted, there are times for exceptions. Alderman earlier referenced an earlier item that came before Board of Public Works within the last 15, 18 months or so, and where a gentleman said that he was hospitalized, and that was the one time where we said, well, if you could prove, show us hospitalization or something, some records, we were looking to waive it or reduce it or something, but that never materialized. So we were willing to at that time, make an exception, but it makes me feel very uncomfortable if we're going to start picking and choosing. I think we might send the wrong message. And I don't think that we want to be the judge, jury, and trial up here, even though we have that right to do that. I think we could set very dangerous precedent. And to speak to Alder Stevens' motion or his amended motion, when we talk about criteria, how many days is enough days? Are we going to say 2 days, 3 days? And I'm not trying to pick on you, but there were 5 days. I don't know how I can vote yes to support that when there were 5 days that lapsed, because I know there are people who will be saying, but I need to walk on that sidewalk. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm in a walker. And very able-bodied people, and they are really upset if they don't have cleared sidewalks. So I think we're setting ourselves up. It's like Alder Knott referenced, you'd have to have some basic criteria. What is that criteria? And I don't hear it. So I would not be able to support the motion or the amended motion. I could support the back half about maybe changing the hanger or something. But that's all that I would be able to support. Thank you.
Thank you. And back to Alder Stevens then.
Sure. I guess now I have 2 points. The first was to respond to the city attorneys as to stating a reason, and I would cite improved transparency to say the costs if the costs were made clear, that may affect the action that we're looking for. So and after that's posted, let the homeowner beware if they don't clean the sidewalk, they could have calculated, they could have done the math and figured out what their fine would be. And if that wasn't enough to get them to move to action, then I would be much less forgiving if they sought to have those charges removed, unless it was some sort of exigent circumstances. In the past, I know that we've waived fees. I think somebody might have been in the hospital or something like that, and they didn't even know that there was snow. But this wasn't that case. And I guess the second point is that the question is not whether or not we should charge a fine. I believe Mr. Hill has accepted the fact that he was, kind of guilty as charged. The question is, how much should the fine be and what should our best practices be? I think that we have the opportunity to just having it brought forward to us today brings us the opportunity to examine what the policy is and look for ways to make improvements, which ultimately the goal is to, make a better city to live in. We want our sidewalks clear, and I think we're pretty united on that. So the only question is, what's the best way to go about that? So whether the amendment passes or not, I guess we'll see. So.
Okay, so if everyone's ready, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. The amendment is to reduce the charges to $350 and to update the notices. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No,
No,
No. I get to vote. It was 3-3 tie, and I will vote no to the amendment. That brings us back to our original motion on the floor that was brought forward to move forward with the sidewalk snow removal charges for 1347 4th Avenue North. Any further discussion on the original motion?
Honor,
Alder Stevens.
I'd like to offer another amendment. The amendment would be to, in the future, direct the city of Onalaska to update the notice to occupant to reflect the potential costs incurred from snow removal.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Smith to amend the motion that future snow removal notices will include potential cost. Alder Knott.
is there an unforeseen consequence of having the city staff do that?
We would add the cost per foot and the administrative fee, but we would not calculate it due to the fact that sometimes part of the sidewalk is shoveled, sometimes it's not. It just depends. We don't know what we're going to do until we actually get there, because they actually measure it once they get on site. So.
But if you did that, the base fee plus the square foot fee, would that be any undue second or third order effect that we're not?
No, I just have to have the recards printed. That's a de minimis cost that we could have done.
For the record, it was not my intention that motion would have the staff calculate the sidewalk at that time. It would just be to save the $2 per square foot plus the flat fee.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that amendment? Okay, let's vote on this amendment. This is to add the potential cost, the formula for calculating it to the flyer. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The amendment passes unanimously. So back to the original motion as amended. The motion was to move forward with the charges. The amendment is that future postings will include the potential cost. Any other discussion? Alder Wolf.
And can you just clarify also, and that is to still keep the invoice at the full cost as what was originally. So when
That
I-
is my
so
understanding.
When I vote is to support that.
And I vote supports the full charges to Mr. Hill at
Thank you.
1347 4th Avenue North.
Thank you.
The amendment would only affect future people. If everyone agrees with that. Alder Stevens.
I just kind of figured this out. So if we vote no to not remove the charges, the amendment will go down with that. Would that be correct?
Yes,
Or
yes.
Can we support the amendment, but not support the removal of the charges?
You would have to vote down the motion as it stands and then make another motion. Because as it is right, if the council takes no action on the charges remain in effect because they were administered based on the policy. So if the council takes no action on that and just moves on to the next item, the charges remain in effect, which is equal to what the motion is on the floor, except for the amendment. Right?
Call for roll call too.
Okay. Is that clear or did I misstate something? Everyone's good. Okay, so we're going to move forward with the vote now and we'll do a roll call vote. I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Jim Olson.
Aye.
Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for coming in. We appreciate your input. Okay, now we're going to go back up to the top. Item A, Finance Committee.
Your Honor, item M was pulled from the consent agenda. Consent agenda, M.
Oh, I was going to do it under judiciary.
Oh, okay. Thank
I
you.
was going to go judiciary A and then M. That's okay with everyone. In the order that it should occur.
So long ago, I have to find.
I know. Hopefully
thought the meeting was
finance,
over.
hopefully finance committee doesn't take as long as Board of Public Works.
So we are at item 8 then?
Item 8, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 8, Finance Committee, A vouchers. Following is a list of monies expended since the last common council meeting dated February 8th, 2022. And so I will move that we approve in the amount $12,304,561.48.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Smith to approve the vouchers as described. Although, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And item 8B, under Finance Committee, Resolution 12-2022, awarding the state of $2,750,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds. And I believe is Brad Dugat online this evening.
Yes, I am.
Welcome, Brad. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just reporting out on the results of the sale and the bond issue today. We received 5 bids and the low interest cost bid is 2.4778%. And that's from a firm called the Baker Group. They're out of Oklahoma City. Of the 5 bids, the highest bid was at just below 2.80%. For perspective, when this was first presented back in January to the Finance Committee, the projection that we were using for interest rate was 2.12%. So what we're seeing today is really a reflection of the increase in interest rates that are market driven, both from inflationary pressures and from the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This issue is financing the city's capital program for 2022, 20-year amortization. All the terms of this are consistent with what was presented to Finance Committee and ultimately approved by council last month. Overall, with the 20-year repayment, there will be no budgetary impact in terms of expenses for 2022. And next year, we've budgeted, or there will be budgeted for 2023, a modest increase to the city's debt service levy. The complete rating report is attached to a presentation that I prepared. Moody's affirmed the AA2 rating of the city, a very high credit quality rating. And they really cite the primary driver on that rating is the city's healthy financial reserves and the city's liquidity. So very solid finances. All in all, a very good sale. In a historic perspective, looking at a 20-year financing of less than 2.5% is still a very attractive interest rate. So with that, I'll just pause and I'll be glad to answer questions or go into more detail if you like.
Thank you. Does anyone from the council have any questions for Mr. Vagut? Okay, looks like we're good. Brad, you want to go ahead? The next, or do you have anything else?
That was really the extent of my report.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will move that my motion is that we approve Resolution 12-2022, awarding the sale of $2.75 million general obligation corporate purpose bonds.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Olson. Is there any further discussion? Voting is by roll call.
Carrie Burmaster.
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Jim Olson,
Aye.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for tuning in. We appreciate all you
you.
do for the city.
Thank you.
Okay, due to our regular schedule, we're now going to jump down to item 11, Plan Commission. Item A, approval of the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the City of Onalaska related to prohibited home occupations and drive-through facility standards. The applicant is the City of Onalaska. I'll put that forward for action by the council.
I make a motion that we approve the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the City of Onalaska related to prohibited home occupations and drive-through facilities standards applied for by the City of Onalaska.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Smith and Alder Burmaster. I think Alder Stevens just beat you out.
Have it.
Oh, okay, we're gonna
Yield to-
award it
Get
to,
'em.
the second is awarded to Carrie Burmaster to approve. Is there any discussion? Alder not.
Yeah, so the discussion that came out of this previously in the committee was that that nobody, I don't believe, had any issues with the drive-through facilities. But the home occupation, I believe that there are going to be some second and third order effects that are totally unintended. I don't think anybody disagrees with what we're trying to accomplish here. But the problem I have is that, well, first off, the methodology is we're making lists of types of businesses that we're not going to allow. And we're adding to them. And I just see that if we're going to continue with that methodology, this is going to result in an ever-growing list of businesses that we keep adding, as opposed to asking the question, what is it we're trying to prevent? And then coming up with metrics for that, such as if we're worried about light, you know, we already have light in our ordinances, but we could tighten it up just for the residents because we can measure that in lumens. Sound, which is decibels. Smell, believe it or not, there's a machine that can do that, all right? Traffic can be measured in volume. Waste is in volume or volume of hazardous materials, numbers of employees and customers, which are already in our ordinances. So I think what we're trying to do is create conditions to where a residential space starts to lose that culture and becomes more of a business space. That's my understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. I just don't like how we're going about it. And I'm going to give some examples on why I can't support home occupation as it is right now. When we talk about they're prohibited for repair, painting, motorized vehicles, on-site sales, resale, repair of automobiles, trucks, boats. So can I change my own spark plugs in my garage, or is that prohibited? Am I allowed to change a serpentine belt or even a battery? That's still home maintenance. I don't think, so there's unintended consequences with this. I have no problem with a tattoo parlor if I don't really notice it's there. If they only have one car parked there with a few people coming in a week, why would I care about whether or not it's a tattoo parlor or if it's a babysitter? If I don't notice it, you know, same thing with a massage service. If somebody has a single table in their basement where they see 8 or 10 people a week, do we really care? That's not going to take away from the residents. when we get into the firearm issues and when we get down to L, if we're going to talk about prohibiting storage of explosives, well, anyone who does their own loading of weapons or of ammunition, I'm sorry, is going to have gunpowder. And that's a very common thing for firearm owners to do. What if they're a black powder shooter using, old weapons? They're going to have black powder stored in their, I think what we're talking here again is volume, whether or not it's for resale, how much is stored there, things of that nature. So I would like, I'll make an amendment that we approve H, drive-through facilities as written, but ask the staff to relook K, home occupation, to where it's more of a results-driven metric as opposed to an ever-expanding list of businesses with the unintended consequences that come with that. So I'll make a motion to approve H as an amendment and disapprove K with the understanding that the staff will come back with some other options next month.
Second that.
Okay, we have an amendment on the floor by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Stevens. Is there further discussion? Alder Stevens?
I think Alder Knott was pretty well spot on. I think, in America, you should be able to do what you want if you're not bothering other people. And many of the businesses that are in question are just the sheer fact that they're operating out of somebody's home doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to do that there. If it's not causing a public nuisance, no smell, no odor, not excess traffic, the sound is normal. If a reasonable, rational person would walk down the street and not be able to determine that there was a business operating there, then why not? So I think at the Judiciary Committee, we all agreed that the change in section H was, there was no problem with that. But there was some contention on K. That's not to say that we shouldn't leave the door open, but perhaps relook at the language and make it specific to the goals of the city, that it would stop overt businesses from operating, but quiet businesses could operate.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if our city planner, Katie Asmunsen, would like to comment on the discussion or not. It's up to you. If you want to say something, we'll give you a chance.
Thank you, everyone. I was asked during the meeting to prepare some sort of a report and give you a little more information. So I spent the last couple of days doing some research specific to home occupations in Onalaska and then also throughout the state. So the city of Onalaska has issued at least 31 home occupations starting in 1992 through 2019. These have included in the past primarily office, some beauty salons, a limo service, DJ facility, balloon delivery service, massage semi-frequently, locksmith service, photography, and irrigation service, and also piano lessons. So these are examples of conditional use permits specific to home occupations. I haven't been able to go back further, but at least 1992 for you this evening. We have had only one business apply for which became a minor home occupation permit since our ordinance has changed. So there's only one entity that paid the fee and came forward, and that was for a tax office at their home so that they could work remotely. So that process was pretty painless working through them. We gave them the standards that were listed within our Unified Development Code, asked questions related to how many people are you going to be having, how many employees if you are, and walked through those general standards. So I further went in to our new code and looked at over 40 cities in the state of Wisconsin to find out how they regulate, to try and give a little more information related to the standards and how they could be measured, and then also what the most common are. So of the 40, 27 of these communities list at least one prohibited use. Many have multiple. Some vary from one use, some have 10 uses. It all depends upon the community and what type of home occupation they'd like to see, or in this case, prohibit. 28 of them listed at least one permitted use. So they did the opposite of what Onalaska does, is they listed out a variety of uses that they were okay with. And then they let a lot of that discretion go to the zoning administrator or perhaps the plan commission. And many of them still use conditional use permits as that avenue for considering ones that aren't on that list. So they decided to be more positive as opposed to negative in what they want to allow. So for your information, the 21 communities all agreed that vehicle, equipment, RV, boat sales, small engine, sale, repair, build, or auto body work was the top most prohibited home occupation. To answer your question, yes, you could absolutely change your spark plugs. You can change your serpentine belt. You can change your battery. You can change your tires. You just can't do it as a business and have people coming to your home and parking inoperable vehicles at your property, charging a service. And so you can absolutely do any of these uses in your own home. It's just the fact of running a business. The next was 14 communities, all regulated and prohibited anything animal. They didn't want to see kennels, dogs, and primarily breeding. Some went so far as animal hospitals and clinics. Then it became retail sales, restaurants and bakeries. 8 communities noted explosive and highly combustible materials, so a use that included that, leaving it more vague. Large scale and general manufacturing. 6 communities called out barber and beauty shops. 5 professional healthcare clinics and offices. Some specifically noted if you're doing a medical procedure, you cannot do that at your home on behalf of someone else. Lastly, manufacturing, processing of chemicals, and also recycling, salvage of large appliances. In all but 5 cities, they all listed typical performance standards. So they all want to look at neighborhood compatibility. And to your point, if the average person doesn't know that it's there, then it's not a problem. That's the way that it's been regulated. Once it becomes a nuisance, the city generally gets involved. So they say no noise, odor, smoke, dust, gas, radiation, fire hazard, heat, vibration, electrical interference, glare, emissions, oftentimes is measured at the property line or the structure itself, or just in the general vicinity of the neighborhood. Only one of them had mentioned a use of the trip generation manual, which is common in the engineering world for a certain number of trips that are, if you have more trips that are come to your home based on how many is an average resident. But other than that, no one else had measurable standards that I was able to find. Other than the decibel reading, which we already regulated in our code. Even light is difficult. Our current code only addresses light more so in an actual commercial property, that you can't have excess glare going onto someone else's property. But we'll often get a call of my neighbor has a light shining in my house and it's right in my bedroom, and what can I do about it? And we very gently ask them to go talk to their neighbor and ask them to put that light elsewhere. Because we don't have an ordinance standard that specifically measures what is appropriate as a residential lot. More interesting, some communities made you sign affidavits of approval and get them registered at the County Register of Deeds office if you were going to allow your neighbor to have a home occupation. They probably had a bad experience with home occupations in their community. And many of them require inspection from either the fire department, the inspection department, or a community development planning department. So a lot of information to put forward for you this evening, but it is fairly common, again, in over half of the communities that I looked at, that they list out a prohibited use. And we've always had prohibited uses. We have moved away from conditional use permits because we actually want the public to have a say that counts and matters, which is why we instead went to very prescriptive standards of what you can do to operate your home occupation, and we will welcome you. The uses that were put forth on this list came from a variety of departments, including our police department. And again, the primary reason was if you have to have the Department of Safety and Professional Services DS licensing, It's at that level that we put you on the list, not because we don't think tattoo facilities are not appropriate. I will say I only found one community that did list that as a prohibited use. Otherwise, it wasn't mentioned. So it was either not mentioned because no one ever thought to do it, or because no one has a problem with it. You don't necessarily know which way. So my only concern for staff is that if we do go more on a metric-based system, much like was talked about this evening, we only have so much staff in our planning and inspection office. And while we can obtain the tools, and some of those tools we actually have today, to go out and be measuring these on a complaint basis definitely adds a lot of staff time. So that's my primary concern, as opposed to just listing out a prohibited use. Most commonly, people will call us and they'll complain on their neighbor and say they have cars coming and going. I swear they're operating a business. And we send that person a home occupation application. We inform them of what they can and cannot do. We ask them to contact us. 9 times out of 10, they immediately call us and tell us what it is that they're doing. In some cases, they have had family members that were ill and they were having all these people come over. So there's just lots of questions over the time. But it hasn't been very predominant in our community to have many home occupations. I think we're going to find them becoming more prevalent as people choose to have side businesses and part-time jobs and operating those out of their home. So, I'm here to answer any additional questions if you have them.
Okay, Katie, I have kind of a procedural question. I'm not sure if you or Amanda, but I'm thinking that this, and it took me a minute to look this up. This amendment, I think, is actually pertaining to the ordinance rather than the UDC code, because with stating the items H and C, are those both in the code also?
Those are both
Is it
sections of the Unified
Well, okay, that was what I was questioning, and I have the ordinance here, but I don't have the UDC in front of me. So I just wanted to verify that the amendment was located in the correct position, regardless of any of that.
So then one last note, if there are any changes to occur to that home occupation portion of the ordinance, I would have you detail to me what it is that you're looking for. But I would want to take that back to the Plan Commission, have another public hearing, because any changes to that have not been noticed to the public. So we have to be as transparent as possible as to what and how we are regulating our land uses. So just as a side note to that, it would go back to Plan Commission for public hearing, and you'd probably see it again in a few months.
Okay, thank you. Alder Knott?
And so a couple of things. So if we were to remain with the current methodology, I would think we'd still have to have some type of metrics to determine if we should be adding additional businesses onto the prohibited list. As you just mentioned, most of the other communities do not have tattooists on their prohibited list. Several have massage services allowed, and we're putting them on our prohibited list. So, I mean, how are we making those decisions? I guess would be the first question, and why would those two specifically be on board? I mean, I totally get it with, and again, we've conversed, I totally agree with what you're trying to do. So that's not the point here. We don't need, auto mechanic shops and things of that nature. I got it. There are some that are clearly obvious. And then the second thing is, I had also forgotten, these were things I brought up at the committee, that under L, when we talk about dangerous weapons, I mentioned that I thought that was vague. I mean, a kitchen knife is a dangerous weapon. And I think the other one I brought up in the committee was a tire iron is a dangerous weapon. So I think that would have to be tightened up into being much more specific. And the other thing is that going with as this is, then what we're also doing, just by how we're defining L, is we're telling a small-time gunsmith out of his basement that he's shut down too. And I don't think that's what we're trying to do. I mean, no one would even know that's going on. I mean, somebody drop off a firearm to be worked on, and anywhere from a week to a month and a half later, they come and pick it up. I mean, it's such a low impact, but that would be on the list the way things are defined right here. They'd be out of business. So it's the second or third order of effects I'm concerned with as we're doing things here is my concern.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing from staff is that we have an amendment on the floor and that perhaps instead of having the amendment, it'd be preferable to rework and renotice. No? Go ahead, Katie.
Only in the event that you want to change what is before you this evening, then I would have you send it back to the plan commission so I can republish.
Well, the amendment is to go ahead with H, but not to go ahead with K. That's what the amendment is.
So, okay.
Amanda?
I don't think you voted on the amendment yet.
No, but
we
the
haven't.
amendment's on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask for legal or our city administrator to weigh in on the amendment that's on the floor or the original motion, whichever way you should choose to go.
Okay, and for clarity, the motion that is on the floor is to approve the UDC text amendment that we have under consideration for home occupation and drive-through facility standards. The amendment is to let part H move forward, which is the drive-through facility standards, but to not move forward with the K portion.
And to have staff come back with other options. That was
To
part of
act on that at a future date based on future staff recommendations. So then,
And I'd like to reserve my time after either one of them speak. I just have a quick question for Katie after they speak. Thank you.
okay, so either Eric, city administrator, or city attorney, one of you two can have the floor.
I mean, ultimately, what you do with 11A, you have to also do with 9A. So if you're going to make that amendment related to and pass that related to the approval of the Unified Development Code text, then you would have to correspondingly do the same under 9A to the ordinance.
Not sure I understood that. You're saying that if we were to do one, we have to do them both? Is that what I heard?
Well, she's saying if we change if we pass, whatever happens with the Unified Development Code, the ordinance needs to be in line with it. But I think that's not answering the question. If the K portion, if the council wants the K portion to be reworked,
You can split them.
you can split them. Okay. Thank you. Alder Wolf?
And now I'd like to hear from our city administrator, and then will have one simple question for our planning manager. Thank you.
I think that Ms. Asmussen answered correctly in the sense that there's things that can be worked on. I mean, it's a policy document in which direction the council wants to go. I guess the one thing I'd ask for clarification is if to bring something back is what direction you'd like to bring that back. I think Steve, Alder, you mentioned you're looking for some specific standards that we can apply. So we can bring it back for further review.
Thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. And my follow-up question to Katie would be, I attended the Plan Commission remotely. I read the minutes. I know there were a few questions, but this did pass as written, as presented this evening for initial approval. It did pass the Plan Commission unanimously.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Alder Stevens?
I'm not ready to amend the amendment at this point, but I'm just wondering how would things be affected if we left K the way it was, accepting that we would remove item D, E, and L? I'm kind of curious if there would be,
You mean item K?
under item K, yes, 1D, 1E, and 1L. And then if we remove those, then could we just proceed and then it doesn't have to go back to a hearing?
I'd be good with that. I'd be glad to withdraw my amendment and change it.
Okay, I think our planning manager would like to weigh in on that. Go ahead, Katie Aspenson.
So essentially removing tattooist, body piercer, massage services, and the firearm related items from that list as prohibited? Is that?
Potentially, other people could weigh in and want to add or take away.
So that would be the feedback that I would be looking for if you wanted me to take this back to the plan commission with the updated public hearing, because it would be different than, for example, the person here this evening be noticed differently. It wouldn't be in the list. So I would still, any change to this, I would bring it back. But that that direction is helpful, that I would appreciate, so then I know what it is that you're looking for. As every use on here is ultimately, as Eric stated, a policy decision of what uses you'd like to see as a home occupation.
Thank you for that. Alder Knott?
And I'm actually open to including some future form of L. I mean, I don't like the way it's written right now. I think it's creating too many unintended consequences. But, you know, as far as, you know, tightening up the language to where we're really trying to prohibit what we intend to prohibit, I think I have no problem with, so.
Katie, go ahead.
Is it L and M or just L?
Just
Two of them. refer to
E and L. Del.
And, if other people wanted to weigh in, I could be malleable, but I guess if Stephen would want to withdraw his motion, I would withdraw the second and we could restate that.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
The amendment has been withdrawn.
I'd like to make an
Alder,
amendment.
okay, Amanda?
I just want to clarify procedurally, if your recommendation is to change the language, it needs to go back to plan commission. Like we can't remove items and pass it tonight. You can pass it in its whole, or you can strike it down in its whole by section, but beyond that, because of the requirements related to zoning codes, we have to send it back to the plan commission for another public
Sure.
hearing.
Okay,
So I'd
So-
like to make a motion then that we send this back to plan with language to remove items K1D, K1E, and K1L. Was there anything else?
okay, we have a motion on the floor already, and that is to approve the UDC as described. That's the motion that's on the floor right now.
Was that not an amendment?
We were discussing an amendment, but the amendment was that H was okay, but K wasn't. So that was withdrawn.
Mhm.
So now we're back to the original motion, which was made by Tom Smith and seconded by Alder Burmaster to approve the UDC as described.
So we would vote this down.
So if we vote no,
Then we can make a new motion.
Can make a new one.
yes, that is an option.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make sure.
Call the question.
Okay, so we're gonna have the vote on the motion, which is to approve the UDC as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
Okay.
No.
I abstain.
Motion fails with 5 noes and 1 abstention.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to the Plan Commission, recommending the removal of item K1D, K1E, and K1L.
Would you like to change that to where then they rework L?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Knott, to send this back to Plan Commission as described. Amanda Jackson?
Do you want to include the approval of section H in there? I mean, there seems to be one entire section that everybody's in agreement on, but there's no motion to do anything with that. So just, you can do them separately, but just make
I'm good
sure
with that. I think everybody was, but
you don't forget it.
So that'll be part of the motion also.
I would make the approval of item H as part of the motion.
I have no problem making that part of my second.
Okay, so the motion is that of the Unified Development Code, the item H for the related to the drive-through facility standards would be approved, but the other item would be reworked back at the Plan Commission as described. Any further discussion?
Can I just clarify for the record?
Sure.
We're saying D, which is tattooist body piercing, e-massage services. And then I believe it's K.
No, L. So it was D and E being totally removed and L being reworked to be more defined.
So L is any occupation involving repetitive purchases? Or are we talking about K firearm related services? I'm looking at the.
It's
ordinance.
slightly confusing
It would be
because
K and L. Yeah, you're right, because the farm related services would include that gunsmith again. You're right. I think I recommend that we withdraw your motion. I'll withdraw my second. We rework this from scratch.
Right, I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
Amanda,
I think that staff has a general understanding of what you'd like to see, and I don't know that you have to be so specific in your motion. You can just make a motion to send that section back to staff to rework based on the feedback and comments tonight.
Oh, I'll go ahead and reintroduce the motion. I think I'm clear now on what we're trying to do here. So I'll make a motion that we approve H, section 1H, but under section 2, we remove K1D, remove K1E, and refine or more further define, I guess, K and L.
I will second that.
okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Stevens to approve section H of the Unified Development Code, but to rework section as described, section K as described.
K and L, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I
sir.
could make a suggestion if it would please the council. I know we have a lot of guests from Centering on Alaska here that have been waiting patiently and it's getting kind of later. Is there any way that we could do item 12 next?
Yes, we went out of order the whole time, so we can go to item 12A, City of Onalaska support of Centering on Alaska 2022 Hanging Basket Program. Turn it over to Dan Wick, Park and Rec Director. And I apologize for the meeting taking so long. I know some people have left already. Go ahead, Mr. Wick.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Attached to your packet tonight is a memo. Back when budget discussions were going on and difficult decisions had to be made, this council went on record with unanimous decision to not fund doing the watering. I think since that's happened in conversations with Centering on Alaska, what does that mean? What participation level does is the Park and Rec and city staff can have with this? So in numerous meetings, trying to clarify, I put this memo together for tonight to have some discussion with the council. And I don't have to read it word for word, but basically what we have done here is to try to help facilitate this program without the burden of the city having to water, staff have to water it 5 days a week. So basically what we've laid out in front of you tonight is that our staff would help hang the baskets at a predetermined date. This time of this would basically be two of our staff members working probably hour and a half to hang the baskets to get it up and get it done. So at a most 2 hours for two staff assisting with Centering on Alaska to get them hung. We would then help removing the baskets. This process goes a little bit quicker. So we'd have two staff probably each working an hour to grab the baskets, take them back to the park shop, and then Centering on Alaska would work with them, taking them off and using our dumpster to throw it away. One question is, right now we have a hose bib that we use to fill the water tank that comes out of our park shop. We would actually get a key, so they would not need to enter the park shop and get a keyed hose bib that we could put on the outside that would be on a key ring that would be for the vehicle to water, that they could utilize that to do the watering. Excuse me. Other questions, we've always paid for the water. It's going to be hard to determine, the water use with it. We were saying that they could continue to fill up at the park shop and the city would cover the cost of the water that goes in the water tank. We would also provide a key for Road Park Shelter number 3, which is a storage area for us. We have the fertilizer, and other items would be located in that location for Centering Onalaska to use. Then down, basically, we would allow Centering Onalaska to use the dumpster at the end of the season. This is a process that we have done since this program's inception. And then I'll let the attorney talk about the last comment, because that's a little bit above my area regarding, the lease agreement that we would work between them. But I support this. The burden of us doing it 5 days a week with the limited staff that we have, I think we can make this go.
Thank you for that, Dan. Alder Knott?
Just have a question. So what's the bottom line with this on your budget? Does this have any major impact?
No, it will not. I mean, as I spoke with Alder Wolf today, I think at most, this would be 8 hours of staff time that we would have included with it.
And can I ask a question of Amanda as well without a motion?
Sure.
And how about liability wise? Are we okay with this?
Yeah, I mean, we have liability coverage for our volunteers. We have lots of volunteers that help with various aspects of city work. And so we would be covered under that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Alder Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. I've spent a lot of time with the folks from Centering Onalaska, and I think it's important to discuss the impact that these volunteers have had to our community. As our city's representative to the county tourism, I meet with a lot of other elected officials from other communities, and it's been stated that, Onalaska was absolutely beautiful, and they were just, they thought that their cities paled in comparison, and a lot of that is because of the work that Centering Onalaska does. The city gets a positive boost in terms of tourism, in terms of the aesthetics of people who live here, and just making it a pleasant community to go drive down the street. And I don't think that people understand how the organization is really on the precipice of ceasing its operations. And I, for one, think that at the very least, the city needs to signal support to that organization if we want that to continue. If this is important to the city, they need at least a sign of good faith. I believe in my conversations that they've accepted that the city does not have the manpower or the man hours necessary to staff the watering program. And they've explored other venues, and I think that they have a plan, but it's still very important that the city is at least aligned with trying to help make the flower baskets continue to happen. I believe there's other things that should occur. For example, I believe a lot of people just assume that the city of Onalaska does the watering baskets, and they're very humble people. They are not out there tooting their own horn. I think they really ought to a little bit more, and we need to educate the public that this aesthetic aspect to the city could very well go away. And if they don't want that to happen, they need to pitch in and help. And one thing we've talked about doing was kind of a citywide fundraising aspect, trying to create an endowment where they can hire and outsource, preferably an Onalaska business, to take care of the watering. We really want this to continue. I want it to continue. I know a lot of people in the community want it to continue. So I think that on the memorandum, and I'm glad to see that Danwick supports this. I think wholeheartedly the city should get behind this. I don't think they're asking for much. And we want to encourage people that are volunteering, not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the city on Alaska, that these things should continue. And we want more people to step up and do what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Knott?
Make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the 2022 hanging basket program and that we execute it in accordance with the March 2nd, 2022 memo from Parks and Rec to the Common Council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Wolf to approve the 2022 hanging basket program as described. Further discussion, Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. So Dan, a couple questions. So in the past, you had estimated it was about 200 hours or so.
200 hours is approximately what we had just for the watering. With the other work that we'd done, we were probably, 208, 210 hours that we estimated we had.
So you're looking at probably about 8 hours.
Correct.
Right. And another question I have, is this centering on Alaska's proposal or is this your department's proposal that's in front of us tonight?
So in conversations with Centering on Alaska and meetings with them, these were questions that were raised with us and we had conversations during these meetings. And so we kind of took that and formulated my memo off of our discussions we had at those meetings. That I felt that we were comfortable in working with our park staff, what we could do. So I would say it's more of a combination of where it's at.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I don't think there's any way to even begin to thank Centering on Alaska for all that you have done for our community all these many years. Please know that the vote that occurred at budget time last fall was, removing the Parks Department from the watering program was certainly not meant to be a referendum on the basket program, which I believe we were all in agreement. It's an immeasurable benefit to our entire community. But when Parks budget was reduced by about 24%, something had to give. And unfortunately, it simply came down to hours that the department needed to get back. And that's really what it came down to. So I will be supporting this proposal that is outlined on the March 2nd, 22 packet this evening. Thank you again to Centering on Alaska. Thank you to Dan and Parks Department for trying to work this out. Thank you also to Alder Stevens. I will be supporting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
I'll just add that
Go ahead, Alder Smith.
I support this too. I think this is a good teamwork effort to do the best we can with our facilities and our staff, and also very supportive of the basket program. It's beautiful. So definitely it's a win-win, hopefully for everybody, at least gets us to the next step. So I'll support.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor then is to approve the hanging basket program. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Brox, for your hard work in bringing this forward, and please pass on our appreciation to your entire team. Thanks for sticking with it.
Sorry we kept you so late tonight.
No, I felt bad when John and Sophia
This
left.
isn't normal.
Okay, I'm going to go back up now. We're going to go to item 9, the Judiciary Committee. So
We did that.
That's
we
me.
need to do, Carrie, we
Yeah.
need to do ordinance.
Yeah. I've
Which
got
needs-
2. Yep, I got A and then we got the one pulled from the
And then
consent.
right, so for the ordinance, it needs to have the same wording as. the-
Okay.
If you need help,
So
let us.
item number 9A is ordinance number 1724-2022 to amend 13.02.68H and 13.0268.K of Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to drive-through facilities and home occupations. Based on the approval that was done under 11A Plan Commission, I will make a motion to approve a portion of ordinance number 1724-2022 to amend 13.02.68H of Title 13 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to drive-through facilities.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Burmaster, seconded by Alder Stevens. Is there further discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously for the ordinance. Thank you. Back to you, Carrie.
Then we'll take up the item that was pulled from the consent agenda item Judiciary M. This ordinance number 1725-2022 to amend section 10.01.31E of Title 10 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Onalaska relating to alternate side parking restrictions. This was pulled so we could have the additional sentence added under E1, which reads where there are no house numbers on either side of the block, the north side of the street for east-west streets or the west side of the street for north-south streets are considered odd, and the south side of the street for east-west streets of the east side of the street for north-side streets are considered even. So I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 1725-2022 with the addition of the sentence that has been added this evening.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Burmaster, seconded by Alder Knott to approve the ordinance as described. Any further discussion? Alder Stevens?
I'm just curious as to what's necessitating the extra language. If a house is has an odd address, it's going to be on the same side of the street. So
Okay, let's go to our city attorney.
There are a few places throughout the city where there are no houses or numbered houses on blocks. And so that causes a lot of confusion for alternate side parking when a person cannot face a street number. And so this has always been a rule of thumb. We're essentially just codifying it so that people can see it.
So in all other cases, if you live on the even side of the street and you know that your number is 1708, then
Yes, but
okay,
that would
so
follow.
that doesn't change. This is just kind of filling in the gaps. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote then on the ordinance 1725 as described. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The ordinance passes. Thank you. Okay, now amazingly, we're on item 13.
I don't know that we've ever.
I can
ping-ponged
see
around
the
so
end.
much.
Oh, no.
Okay, I don't know who wants to take this, Alder Stevens or Alder Olson, whoever prefers, can introduce this item.
Let Mr. Stevens take that.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I do this, I have actually spoken in the past about the appropriateness of city councils to talk about things that aren't really in the realm of city councils. So if you could point out the irony, I would actually appreciate that. But with that said, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 14-22. Shall I read it?
Do we have a copy of it at all?
Yeah, we got a copy in the book.
This one attached.
Okay,
So yes, I should read it, or no, I should not read it?
yes, you should read it.
So this is a resolution supporting the independence of Ukraine and condemning the acts of war by Russia. Whereas the city of Onalaska finds deplorable and condemns the unprovoked aggression initiated by the Russian Federation and President Putin against Ukraine, which has resulted in needless civilian and military deaths, unnecessary suffering and misery. And whereas the city of Onalaska respects and affirms the independence, sovereignty, and the borders of Ukraine and the right of her peoples to freely and democratically self-determine their governance and elect their leaders. And now therefore be it resolved that the city of Onalaska demands the Russian Federation immediately cease hostilities and completely withdraw from Ukraine. Now therefore be it further resolved that the city of Onalaska supports and encourages the collective efforts of the United States of America, NATO, and other concerned allies to continue efforts to discomfort, befuddle, and coerce the Russian Federation until it withdraws from Ukraine. Now therefore be it further resolved that the city of Onalaska supports and encourages the collective efforts of the United States, NATO, and other allies to support humanitarian efforts to ease or relieve the suffering of Ukrainian refugees and others affected from the unlawful Russian invasion. I would make that as a motion, and I'd like to retain my time.
We have a motion on the floor by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Olson to approve resolution 14-2022. He is asked to speak first and we'll make our way around after that. Go ahead, Alder Stevens.
These few years have certainly been interesting times that we live in. But as kind of a libertarian, I would sometimes question whether or not we should be involved in wars. And I would actually like to see us do more, but I drafted this resolution kind of at that base level of what I think that my sense is what resonates with most of America. If this resolution passes, I don't know, perhaps we'll get on Vladimir Putin's list of governments that are unfriendly to the nation of Russia. I would proudly put our city there. And if passed, I would suggest that a copy of the resolution be forwarded to Senators Johnson, Senator Baldwin, Congressman Kind, the Embassy of Ukraine, and the US State Department. Also, if the city is up for it, I would be willing to work if there could be some sort of collective effort to do any sort of fundraising for humanitarian purposes. I will stand out in front of City Hall and hold a bucket. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Knott?
Yeah, so I've find myself in the difficult position where on a personal level, I strongly agree with much of what this resolution is saying. But at the same time, I can't support it as an alder of the city of Onalaska. And the reason I say that, it's pretty much threefold. So first off, up and front bottom line is this isn't city business. These types of proclamations here, especially as worded, belong more in the realm of the US State Department and international diplomacy. It's similar to my concerns that I had voiced last month about one of our agenda items. I just don't want to proceed down a path that is including items that don't apply to our city. And, I just not so sure they should be taking up a space on the agenda and taking up our time. So the other reason is this type of a proclamation, it doesn't really result in a tangible outcome. You're talking about fundraising. I can provide 3 right now. I mean, if somebody wants to talk to me afterwards, absolutely can provide 3 nonprofits that are already raising money and supplies to be sent to Ukraine, to include one of whom is actually sending these types of supplies directly to Ukrainian soldiers, if that's what your wish is. But I don't think it's something that the city should be getting involved in. It's something that we as an individual need to be taking those types of things into consideration. And then lastly, even if I could find myself, again, voting for a resolution that I just strongly don't believe is city business, as it is right now, I still couldn't support this due to many of the wording. So if for some reason, obviously I'm not going to support this, but that the majority of the council is going to, I would strongly recommend that the 3rd paragraph and the 4th paragraph be completely removed, and that the final paragraph where it says that the city of Onalaska supports and encourages, it would just say encourages. And the reasons I say that, first off, the 3rd paragraph where it talks about city of Onalaska demands the Russian Federation immediately cease hostilities. Well, that's not enforceable. We really can't demand anything. And again, this falls within the realm of the State Department and of the other international nations that are in diplomacy. And then the 4th paragraph, it comes pretty darn close to where it sounds to me that the city of Onalaska is coming close to declaring war on Russia, with that we're supporting the war efforts basically of Ukraine. Also, where you mentioned the word allies, I think you meant to say other concerned nations. Allies has a very specific diplomatic definition, and I don't think that applies here. So as a minimum, I strongly recommend it be reworked, but I just can't, even though my heart is saying I absolutely see where you're going, I'm on your side, but I just can't, I can't find myself to vote yes on this resolution.
Thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sure the 2 alders who are the authors of the resolution had nothing but the best of intentions bringing it forward. But I have to say, as Alder Stevens just mentioned a little bit ago, this past council year, there have been perhaps, I think, 3 of us who have at one time or another questioned what is the role of municipal government And should we be getting involved in whatever the topic may have been at that time? My comments are not directed at the authors, but the resolution itself. In various places of our ordinances, they speak as to the role of the Common Council. Time and again, you'll read the phrase, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. We set policy, our focus, forgive me as this is not an exhaustive list, but typically, you know, we do fire, police, water, sewer, roads, infrastructure, licensing, building code, elections, park and rec, you know, for the betterment of the community. I don't see any substance to this resolution. Alder Stevens mentioned at the end about possibly where it could be sent. That was one of my biggest questions, like where will this go? Who will see it? I know the city of Cleveland just got some traction in the news this past week. They recently passed a resolution somewhat similar to this, but theirs was done in part because about 5% of their community is of Ukrainian descent. They have about 45,000 Ukrainians who live in the state of Ohio. So to me, they were looking at, my opinion is that to support the people in their state and their community, which I think meant something. They're looking to support them. They also sent their resolution to the President of the United States and every member of Congress. The city of La Crosse is flying the Ukrainian flag through, I think this Friday. I think they lit up the La Crosse Center. I don't know if Dan wants a new job to set up, you know, blue and yellow for the Omni Center. You know, at least with what City of La Crosse, for example, did. I'm not saying that we should do that. I'm just saying as one example, at least to me, they've at least kind of somewhat involved the community. So it's something tangible, like Alder Knott said previously, something tangible that you could actually see it. So maybe you can get some buy-in from the rest of the community. If this resolution in some way more directly benefited the Ukrainians and their crisis as in a donation drive or something, I would be more open to it. Right now, it's a piece of paper that doesn't do anything. So I would not be able to support it as it is currently written. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Smith, did you want to comment?
Yeah, comment. I have to agree with both these two here. I just don't think it's the city business to do this. I commend you for where you're going with this, and like these two, I support it personally, but I just don't think it's appropriate to be on city business. So I would not support it.
Thank you. Alder Burmaster, would you like to comment?
Yes, I would just like to say that I also agree with the three previous alder persons who have spoken. And while I think this is wonderful that you did bring this forward, so we get, the discussion on this, I just can't support this as business of the city council. But I would also encourage people to get involved with the donations and things like that. And I think there are other alternatives, as Alder Knott had spoke of, where we can get involved and actually show some support for these people. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Alder Olson, would you like to comment?
I can, if I can indulge you for about 10 seconds. I think your comments are excellent. I would just like to give you all, if you want to write this down, there is a website that you can go to that is www.razom, RAZOM @Ukraine.com. And it's a legitimate website, taking all kinds of monetary and other things that you have to, that came through Fox yesterday as a legitimate site that you could donate if you wanted to. I think that's positive.
Thank you for that. Would anyone else like to comment before we go to vote? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve resolution 14-2022. Let's just do a roll call vote so that I don't have to wonder what it ended up being. Diane Wolf.
Nay.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Nay.
Tom Smith,
Nay.
Carrie Burmaster,
Nay.
Jim Olson.
Aye.
Okay, so the resolution fails. There were 4 in favor and 2 against,
Other way around.
or 4 against and 2 in
No, I think
favor.
I was right.
He wants to win on it. But I mean, there is no loser here, although the resolution doesn't pass. I think that we stand united in supporting our country and our partners in the Ukraine. Item 14, city administrator.
Your Honor, including in the packet is the resolution as written by staff as directed by this body last month, resolution 13-2022, which would alter the city hall hours for 2022. Don't know if the resolution has been read publicly, if you'd like me to do so, or if you have it in front of you, and that's good enough. Also attached is 3 weeks worth of counts. Initially started just the 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, able to go back and rebuild, especially planning and city clerk finance. It's about 15 work days worth of numbers. The busiest between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock was city clerk and finance department for those 3 weeks, with 18 total people between 4 and 5 for just over one person, 1 and a quarter perhaps a day, on average between 4 and 5. Also counted was the morning 8 till 9, as well as noon to 1 shift. And you can see what staff has been requesting kind of bears out by the length, by the counts as shown over those departments.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions by the council? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Alder Not.
Regardless of how the motion goes tonight, Eric, would you be open to continuing this type of data tracking for like 6 months so we can get a broader view for maybe next year when we look at this? I can't speak for all the department heads. I'll bring it up to them tomorrow, but my answer would be yes, we'd be comfortable Okay. continuing the counts. Yeah, 'cause I just 3 weeks is still a short time, but yeah.
Thank you. Alder Wolf.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I see that the resolution is for 4 PM, 8 AM to 4 PM. So I guess my one, I have some concerns. I still feel I have a much greater comfort level for 4:30 versus 4, but that's just me. Are we looking at, I guess I'm looking for some possible, I'm not sure what I'm looking for. I'm just wondering, does this mean majority of people are leaving at 4 o'clock, or department heads leaving at 4 o'clock, or I'll just speak for myself. I'm concerned about access and how I conduct business as an older person and get things done. So does this mean if I have my typical, that we typically have like a 4 o'clock every month, a pre-F&P meeting to talk about stuff? So is that going to have to be moved to 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock versus our typical 4 o'clock because of this, or more department heads are going to be here and this is going to affect more counter people, or it's going to be kind of a crapshoot for every department head to decide for themselves?
I can answer that in a few ways. My hours, of course, are flexible throughout the day and in evening. So appointments with me can be made and be kept regardless of the hours, as long as it fits our mutual schedule. I would say that probably is the same for any of the department heads as well. If you need information, they're always accessible to reach. City Hall office hours are meant for when the City Hall is open to the public in general to transact business. As you can see, most of the transactions are done online, over the phone, through the mail, or what have you. And as the resolution shows, reducing the number of hours allows for the other work that's not currently getting done or is getting done on comp time overtime to be done within that 8 hours of the day. So, likely have staff here between say 8 and 5, but not every member of the staff, because that allows us people to come early, open tills up before public comes in at 8. It allows people to stay and close tills down when the office is then closed at 4. It allows also where you can see where the hours are needed, which is lunchtime. That's when we transact business, and that's when we're sending those people away to make up for that time so they can be here at 4. So business will be accomplished, and I'll be available to you in those times mentioned.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, I appreciate that we're looking at after Election Day. So it gives us some time I guess my biggest concern would be how are we going to educate the public? Because that is who we serve and they're going to be the ones who are going to be most affected. I'm guessing that it would be a convenient time to be for April 4th because people are going to be, coming in for election, for the 9 days for in-person voting starting on March 22nd. If this were to pass this evening as written, would we start like advertising like coming soon or something, just something to start educating? Because to me, it's always about educating the public. So because they're the ones who will be mostly affected by this.
Absolutely. If this were to pass tonight, we would have that opportunity to use all the people coming in for in-person absentee voting and also the end of the month pet licensing. We tend to get a little bit busier this time of year with that. So it would be an opportunity to change the signage, put flyers at the counter. We'll change our website. Any other recommendations that you want us to do, we'd be welcome to do them.
Interview by the local, maybe channel 8 and 19. I know you're going to love the camera. I mean, I think that would be
by anyone but me. Yes.
I would, at the end of the day, I'm always about just educating the public. And if we could do that, I think that would go a long way. Thank you.
Okay, and so if we're just kind of clarifying what the motion may be, that's fine, but we should have a motion on the floor if we're going to expand into discussion. Joanne?
We also do have one more opportunity to notify the public is through our water bills. We have until March 21st to put an insert in with our water bills. So if this were to pass tonight, we do have that opportunity to add that as well.
Okay, and Amanda, did you have a comment?
I was just going to add that we would also push it heavily on social media and probably put out a press release.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 13-2022 to change city hall hours for 2022.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Alder Burmaster, second by Alder Not to approve resolution 13-2022. Further discussion? Alder Not?
So did some number crunching, and of course, the danger on this is kind of what I was alluding to with my question, is that we have not quite a full 3 weeks of complete data. Some of these days aren't complete and depending on the office. So it's really tough to make a decision off that. I'm open to it. But looking at the numbers we do have, I note that 16% of our total customer throughput did occur from 4 to 5. But the plethora of that, I guess I would say would be the correct word, was on Mondays, where you had 11 alone, which was 27.5% of the Monday load. So if we're going to use these numbers to inform us, I'm wondering if we go either 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 on Monday and 8 to 4 Tuesday through Friday, just based on the numbers that are in front of us. There looks like during this 3-week period, there was a fair demand for 4 to 5 on Mondays for whatever reason.
Any other discussion? Alder Stevens?
In the event that the change of hours proves to be problematic, how difficult would it be to amend that further? Because it's like we're giving employees something, more conducive hours at this point. But if that is, if it appears that we're not able to get the job that we needed and we tell them they need to work more, I would expect that would not be met with joy and glee from staff. So how, is there like an understanding that this is at least experimental at this point?
The resolution is written to be temporary. So unless the council takes action, then we'll move forward with that going forward, but it's designed to be tracked and monitored through the end of 2022.
Thank you for that. I think, Jared, did you have something to add? Let's have Jared make his point first.
I just wanted to point out, we tracked 3 of the 9 hours the city hall is open. So there's 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon that aren't in those totals. So we did not track all 9 hours the city hall is open. We only tracked 3 hours. So it's not a percentage of true traffic during the day that came in between 4 and 5.
But I do have to go with the numbers are in front of me is what I'm saying. I mean, that's what was provided. So.
Okay, Alder Not?
Yeah, so I whether, I don't know if it'll gain traction or not, but I'm wanting to make a motion for an amendment. But I'm going to defer, I guess, to Eric. What would be best if assuming this amendment were to pass? you think it would be best for me to amend it to say 8 to 5 on Mondays or 9 to 5 on Mondays with 8 to 4 throughout the rest of the week? Just thinking, based on the numbers, we need to have a 4 to 5 option on a Monday.
Having spoken to all the department heads regarding that issue, my indication would be 9 to 5 if there is one such day, keeping it 40 hours.
Okay.
Ultimately is, we're trying to staff more than 40 hours with 40-hour employees. So by 9 to 5, I'll at least keep that to 40 hours. versus
Okay.
8 to 4 on the other days.
I'll go with that. So I'll make a motion that we amend the resolution to change Monday hours from 8 to 4 to 9 to 5.
Okay, we have amendment on the floor. Is there a second? Motion by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Stevens to amend the motion with Monday being 9 to 5. Discussion? Oh, Eric, go ahead. Oh, Sabrina. Sabrina?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Sorry, I sound terrible. I would just like to add that my suite did take a look at weeks in the month of June, September, October, and November. And in those months, 8 to 9 was our busiest time in those months. So I'm cautious in changing our hours on Mondays to open at 9 o'clock. When we do see a decent amount of people come in the door from 8 to 9 o'clock.
Thank you for that, Sabrina. Alder Burmaster, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to say that I would not be in support of that amendment because I do think it's more confusing to the citizens to have different hours on different days. I think it is better for them to have some consistency so they know what hours are open. I said, once we start switching those hours around, they get very confused between the days and when you're open and when you're not. So I would like to see a consistent 8 to 4 throughout the week. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Smith?
Yeah, I agree with Alder Burmester. That was my first thought is that, it gets confusing when, okay, what day is it and what the time is. So I would support keeping it consistent to what we propose here.
Thank you. Alder Wolf?
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with both Alder Smith and Alder Burmaster. I just know sometimes when I start calling around and they start, a business will give me hours, it's so easy when they say 8 to 5, 7 days a week. It's like, and you just know it. And when they start adjusting them, it just gets tricky. And I think this will just be a temporary blip. And I appreciate though at the now therefore, this is it just goes through December, and then we'll be looking at it for 2023. I think if this runs off the rails and this is problematic, I think it's going to be on staff and administration to bring it back before us so we can further talk about it, because I'm always willing to talk about if we encounter problems with this change. But I will be supporting the 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. Thank you.
Okay, Alder Stevens and then Alder Knott.
I seconded that motion because I think it's important to understand that, we serve customers, and sometimes if they work during the day, it could be hard for them to get there. When we talked about this in the past, I think I had spoken about having some sort of like late night that some people that needed to conduct city business but should not have to take PTO. So at least that having one night that was at least a little later was kind of a acknowledgement to that. I personally feel that 4 o'clock is perhaps maybe too early, and I thought I heard 4:30 issued before. Maybe there's another compromise, but our focus should be what works best for the people that we work for.
Okay, Alder Knott.
So, yeah, I guess I'm not really sure where I stand now, even though I made the motion. Very good points brought up about having predictable hours. Again, I don't know, boy. In addition to, the tracking of throughput, when we're done with this in December, assuming that it passes, can we do a survey that open up sometime, Survey Monkey or something for the public to chime in on what they think about the changes, pro or con? I mean, yeah.
I would also anticipate between now and the election time, like I said, tracking numbers still. But in determining if it's working or not, that would be, the number of calls or complaints or people that didn't quite get the messages and social media that we weren't open to be tracked as well. I mean, that's all data that this body needs to have. So whatever outreach we can have with the public to see how it's working for them in general, will be communicated back to this body as well.
Okay.
A survey or whatever, phone calls that we get throughout the year.
No matter what we decide, there will be impacts, both pro and con. So I just trying to figure out how to identify them. So, yeah.
Okay, so the amendment that we have on the floor is to change Monday to 9 to 5. So let's go ahead and vote on that amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, changing the hours on Monday, please say aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, the amendment.
Changed my mind.
is a failure.
That's why we have discussions.
Epically, I don't even need to do a roll call vote for that. It did have a second. The
Obviously, you
original
changed
mo-
his mind too.
The original motion is back to approving. The motion is to approve resolution 13-2022. Is there any more discussion on that? No more discussion. Okay, all those in favor of that resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. The resolution is passed. Okay, item 15 is closed session. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, paragraph 1, paragraph C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Specifically, the discussion will be about the contract for the city administrator. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, the council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and/or continue on with the printed agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to go into closed?
Second.
Motion by Alder Wolf, seconded by Alder Smith to go into closed session. The voting will be by roll call.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Jim Olson, Carrie Burmaster,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
We are in closed session. The time is 9:25 PM. Please take a few moments to stretch your legs and we will secure. Carrie, if you need to stretch your legs, we'll come back and make sure we've secured the line in a couple minutes.
I would ask that we get a good close to 10 minutes. We've been going at for 2.5 hours and we need just
5 to 10
5
minutes.
to 10, please.
Okay.
Adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Tom Smith, seconded by Diane Wolf. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Sorry.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Carrie.